Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Let's get into this. So the WBC continues to sink lower and lower because they've decided that they're just going to throw the WBC belt to the winner of this fight. This fight was originally for Canelo-Smith's title, the WBA belt. The WBC belt was stripped from David Benavidez, so now it's a vacant belt. Now it's interesting because Canelo Alvarez, he requested to fight this Yildirim guy for the vacant belt before he ended up leaving Golden Boy. Matter of fact, this is why he left Golden Boy and the Zone. Because while Canelo wanted to fight Yildirim, a guy who's coming off of a loss, the Zone, they rejected the fight. They wanted him to fight better competition. And Canelo said, well, okay, if you guys want it that way, if I can't pick my own opponents, I'm out of here. And that's exactly what happened. So it looks like Canelo is still going to get what he wants, because if Canelo gets past Canelo-Smith, which he will, I've already explained in several videos why Canelo is tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez. And if you look at the image that I just put on the screen right now, it explains why Canelo-Smith is tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez. And so there's no confusion. That's not two photos of Canelo-Smith I have on the screen. The one on the right of the screen is Rocky Fielding versus Canelo, and the one on the left is Smith versus Ryder. So thanks to the WBC, once Canelo Alvarez gets past Smith, then guess who's going to be his immediate mandatory? Yildirim, the guy that Canelo requested to fight for the vacant belt before he left the Zone and Golden Boy. And you see Yildirim's record. His last fight, he lost to Anthony Durrell, and a couple fights back, he lost to Chris Eubank. But somehow, once Canelo wants to fight this guy for a world title, now he's ranked number 2 in the WBC rankings. This situation is eerily similar to the first world title that Canelo Alvarez fought for, which was another WBC belt, but this time, it was for the vacant WBC belt where he fought against Matthew Hatton, Ricky Hatton's brother, a fighter that wasn't ranked in anyone's top 10 except for the WBC. He was ranked number 9 by the WBC, but at welterweight. And somehow he ended up being able to fight for a vacant title against Canelo at super welterweight. And now, since the WBC president admitted that it was Canelo Alvarez that requested the Yildirim fight, then that means Canelo's team most likely requested for the Matthew Hatton fight as well. So back to Canelo getting exactly what he wanted from the beginning. The WBC has made Yildirim, Canelo Alvarez, or the winner of this fight, the mandatory. None of this makes sense, but what really doesn't make sense is the fact that Yildirim is ranked number 2, but David Benavidez is ranked number 1. So if anyone was going to be the mandatory or stepping aside to allow Canelo to fight for the WBC belt, it would be Benavidez, wouldn't it? So Canelo Alvarez has made it very clear. He's not going to fight the undefeated David Benavidez. He's not going to fight Jamal Charlo. He's not going to fight Demetrius Andrade unless he is really, really forced to do so or pressured to do so. He's not going to fight these guys. So if that's the case, we might as well just start calling Canelo Alvarez the White Assassin, because these are the only opponents that he is targeting right now are white fighters. And this is the reason why there is absolutely no way Canelo Alvarez could even be considered pound for pound top 3, one of the best fighters in the world. You can't win the Super Bowl saying you will only play against certain teams. You can't win the NBA Finals saying you will only play against certain teams. You can't win a gold medal in the Olympics saying, I'm only going to fight certain people on the bracket, but not everyone on the bracket. I don't want to fight any Cubans on the bracket because they always give me problems. It doesn't work that way, guys. But the WBC wants it to work that way. Canelo Alvarez wants it to work that way. You know, the WBC, they have completely made a mess of their organization. Because I remember when the WBC president first announced that he was going to hand over this fake franchise belt to Canelo, he tried to explain. First of all, he messed up by admitting that it's not a title, it's not a championship belt. It's not a belt and it's not a championship. This is what he said, his own words. First he says that. Then later on, a couple days later, he does another interview and he says, trying to justify the franchise belt, and he says, you know, fighters shouldn't have to fight unnecessary mandatories. And at the time, he was talking about Jamal Charlo. But now Mauricio and Canelo, they have no problem with facing their mandatory Yildirim. So when it was Jamal Charlo, who was a mandatory for 2 years for Canelo's belt, it was unnecessary. But now Yildirim, who just became the mandatory, now it's necessary. Yeah, we know what time it is. Matter of fact, don't just take my word for it. So if you're saying to yourself, well, how do you know they're planning on having Canelo fight him next? Let me quote exactly what the WBC president said about this situation. Quote, the WBC is extremely proud to have such tremendous fight for the vacant WBC super middleweight title. He's obviously talking about Canelo versus Smith. And then he says this, I would like to personally praise Avni Yildirim for his exemplary collaboration to make this a reality. And when he says collaboration, he's talking about Yildirim stepping aside and allowing Canelo to go ahead and fight for the WBC as long as he's going to turn around and give Yildirim a shot at the title in his very next fight. Man, if I was David Benavidez, I would be in an uproar right now. They're going to skip right past Benavidez and give Yildirim a shot at a world title when he doesn't even deserve it. I mean, worst case scenario should have been the WBC matching up David Benavidez against Yildirim for the mandatory slot. That would have made way more sense. But in this case, David Benavidez, he doesn't get a shot at Yildirim or a shot at Canelo Alvarez. But the walls are closing in on Canelo, guys. The walls are closing in. I'm telling you. Because you got Canelo Alvarez, who just said he is determined to become the unified champion in this division, 168. But even if they do allow Canelo Alvarez to skip around David Benavidez and fight Yildirim, David will still be considered the #1 contender. And he'll be in the same position that Jamal Charlo was in, where he's waiting around, and eventually it's going to be enforced that Canelo is going to have to fight David Benavidez. Then you have the situation with the WBO, where right now you have Andrade and BJ Saunders negotiating a fight. If that fight happens, because we all know that Canelo, he wants to fight BJ Saunders. But what if Andrade beats Saunders? Now he's the WBO champion in his division. Like I keep telling you guys, the Andrade and Charlo problems will not go away when it comes to Canelo Alvarez. They were a problem for Canelo at 154. They were calling him out back then. Canelo, he dipped out, went to 160. They followed him to 160. They were a problem there. Canelo had to vacate his belt to avoid Charlo at 160. Dipped out, moved to 168. Andrade's moving to 168. Charlo already said he's about to move to 168. Because once he moves to 168, Jamel is going to move to 160. So the walls are really closing in on Canelo, guys. I'm telling you. And I've always said that if he's pressured, if he's really pressured to take the fight, I believe he will take the fight against an Andrade or a David Benavidez. or a Charlo. He's gonna have to. Do you know how bad he's gonna look if he ends up vacating belts again at 168? If he ends up avoiding Demetrius Andrade, if Andrade is lucky enough to get the Saunders fight, because Andrade will beat Billy Joe Saunders. Do you know how bad Canelo is gonna look after he just said for a second time he wants to unify the belts? Because if you guys don't remember, he said the same thing at 160 until Andrade and Charlo crashed the party. He's gonna look so bad, guys, if Andrade wins that WBO strap and Canelo decides he no longer wants to unify all the belts. Let's see how this drama plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. What's going on, guys? You know, I've always wanted to find a second source of income. And I've always wanted to learn about stocks and trades because I've heard so much good stuff about it. So I finally found a way to do it. And now I'm learning from 6, 7, 8-figure traders. So not only am I learning from them, but the most important thing is I get to copy their trade. So I get to earn while I learn. Now, if you want the full details, click on the link below so you can learn while you copy and paste their trades. And just understand this, guys. Just by watching the video, you're doing a great job of supporting my channel, and I appreciate it. And the craziest thing about doing this trading is you can do it anywhere. All you need is an internet connection, and you can do it just with your phone. So if you want to learn how to make a second income alongside me without having to pitch, sell, or recruit, go ahead and click on the link below, and I'll see you inside. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. Basically, you will end up with a haircut shape up or an edge up. What they do is they tattoo small dots that look like hair follicles in the areas where you have lost your hair and then blend it with your existing hair. You can even choose what type of hairline you want, hard shape up or soft and natural finish. And to maintain it, all you gotta do is shave your hair every few days, which is something you already were probably doing anyway. So if you wanna get this hookup for my brothers out there in the UK and Europe, make sure you check out the Scalp This on Instagram. And for my brothers out there in the States, make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. And when you go on their pages, you can see for yourself what these guys look like before. I mean, these guys are literally hair magicians. I've never seen anything like this before, but all I can tell you guys is this is a serious game changer for us men. So make sure you get in contact with Scalp This and Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.